Hello and welcome to Community Difference Makers, a conversation powered by Bankers Trust and United Way of Central Iowa. I'm your host, Emily Abbas. And this season, as you know, we're taking a deep dive into critical community issues here in Central Iowa, the kinds of issues that touch everyday life and can't be solved with just one conversation. Our topic for the next several episodes is childcare. We'll explore childcare as essential infrastructure, where access, affordability, equity, and opportunity matter for families, for employers, and for the entire workforce. We'll hear from the people and the organizations leading this work and the families whose lives are being shaped by it. And together, we'll explore what's working, what still needs to change, and how each of us can help ensure that every child in Central Iowa has access to quality care, not just care, but quality care. In today's conversation, we're talking with the leaders of organizations that sit at the heart of our childcare workforce. We have Janice Schroeder, CEO of Children and Families of Iowa. Want to make sure I got that right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Deidre DeJear, CEO of Oakridge Neighborhood.
Always happy to be with you all.
And also joining this important conversation, Mary Sellers, CEO of United Way of Central Iowa. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, together we're going to explore what the childcare system looks like in today's environment, the barriers shaping access and affordability, and what collaboration across sectors can make possible. So, Mary, we'll start with you. If you had to explain the childcare system in Central Iowa to someone new to this issue, how would you describe how it's working and where it's breaking down?
Yeah, so that's a big question. But what I'd probably do is just set some context for the state of childcare in our community. In our state, Iowa, we are always one of the top 3 states in our country, in some cases, number 1 for dual income households with kids 6 or younger. So that means there's a great demand for childcare. And the challenge is here in Polk County, we only have one childcare slot for every 3 little ones that need it. Um, Up until this past fall, it was 2 kids per one slot, but unfortunately, the newest data is showing we're sliding backwards, which is a real issue for the system of childcare. The other complicating factor with it is that in many cases, childcare costs more than college for families. So when you have these working households, affordability, and to your point, quality early childhood education, so kids are healthy and ready to learn going into school is critically important. So those are just some of the contexts that we're working within collectively to try to advance childcare so that it's affordable, it's quality for our community, which has a high demand for it.
And as a follow-up to that, who's most affected by the way the system's functioning or maybe not functioning right now?
I think anyone who has a child in childcare, but clearly those that are low income, what we call ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, yet employed for the most part. Those are people who are working for the most part one job, in some cases 2, but can't make the basic needs, can't fund their basic needs. So if you look at that across central Iowa, if you look at that across Polk, Dallas, and Warren County, it's 1 in 3 households that are ALICE. And so, just to give you a visual, that would be every household in Ankeny, Waukee, West Des Moines, Urbandale, and Indianola. All of those households would total 1 in 3. So they're already struggling to be able to pay for housing, to be able to pay for food, to be able to pay for childcare. So they're more adversely impacted than the balance of the community.
And before we move to our other guests, let's just talk about the childcare workforce for a moment. Why are childcare workers so central to the stability of this system, and what are they up against?
Yeah, so clearly they're essential for these little
Mhm.
ones to be ready to learn and be able to go into kindergarten. The challenge that we have from a system standpoint is the average pay is $13.41. So that is a challenge for them as individuals when in some cases they have their own little ones that are in childcare to be able to make that math work.
Mhm. Wow. Janice, from your vantage point at Children and Families of Iowa, what are the biggest structural barriers that make childcare hard to find or hard to afford? And which ones come up most often in your work?
Well, Emily, as I'm thinking about this and listening to Mary's responses, what comes to mind are three structural barriers. One is that of workforce, the recruitment and retention, but also the professionalism as it relates to early childhood education workforce. The second, and you've probably heard it more than once, and that's the reimbursement rate. And then last but not least, the cost of care for providers. So when I think about recruitment and retention of our workforce in early childhood education, um, families want early childhood education, but we have to have staff in order to keep the centers open. And one of the biggest challenges is that the parents want a safe, affordable child care center so that they can go to work or they can attend a training program so that they can receive a certification or an accreditation so that they can make more money, thus address the financial insecurity in that piece. We are competing with other industries that are paying $5 to $7 more per hour.
Mhm.
So our childcare staff, they too have families and they're unable to make it at times. They're working two jobs. So when you think about our industry, our early childhood education industry, we are also requiring them to have education, ongoing training, trying to incentivize it
Mm.
so that they want to move up in that ladder, recognizing maybe I'll only have this staff person for a couple of years, but they're going to stay in the field of education. When you look at other industries, they're not requiring as much education as we are, but they're paying $5 to $7 an hour more. And that makes it really difficulty for the retention piece. The other part of that is the professionalism. When people think about early childhood education, they think, oh, it's babysitting, but it's more than that. It's the development of the social emotional learning, it's developing race relationships, it's communication, it's all of that. Plus, when you think about it, it's the stepping stone for learning. And it's also a great predictor of career pathways and success in that.
Mm.
So, huge barrier for that. The second is the reimbursement rate. So, this is something that all of us have been advocating for, and we're very grateful to United Way for all of their advocacy efforts and helping us share that story and kind of talk about it. It's truly different for families. And it's not just families just sitting around not working, but these are families that they could be in a community where the major um, industry has left. So that doesn't mean that you don't want to work. It means that you may need to retool.
Mm.
So for those of us that are in the field, it's not that we just do childcare. We're also providing other supportive services and connecting families to needed resources. So when we look at our reimbursement rate, we are far below market rate. Yet we are expected to provide this quality care and maintain good quality staff and maintain these slots, which we cannot. And I think the third piece is that how do we sustain that? How do we sustain that when we are not reimbursed at market rate? We have a lot of licensure requirements. And then we have to uphold the professionalism of that piece. We can't just pass that cost on to families because they can't afford it. The majority of us work with families that are described as low income families. And so when we look at those of us that really serve that population, this is what we see happening. They either decrease the number of slots available for low income families, they either stop serving them altogether, or we'll see more centers closing. And that's not what we want here in our community. When there's an opportunity to really look at that reimbursement rate and find a better way to accurately increase the rate so that we can continue to do a great job for kids and families. And so parents can thrive and move from that just simply making it from month to month.
We have a lot to discuss, don't we?
We have a lot to discuss.
Well, Janice walked us through those barriers in such a great way that helps us understand what we're dealing with. Deidre, how do those barriers impact the families and providers you work with? And walk us through what this looks like in your day-to-day life.
I'll start with one of the things that Janice already mentioned, which is the challenges in cultivating the strength of our workforce in this area. And we are working with mothers and fathers that are employed in early childhood that qualify for childcare assistance because of the level of wages that they're making. One of the first things that I remember walking into Oakridge thinking about how are we going to bolster the availability of early childhood education in our community via Oakridge was looking at our staff first, knowing that without our staff being able to stably live out their dreams and their hopes and achieve basic needs for their family, it was going to be difficult for them to translate being meaningful educators in the classroom environment. And so we looked at pay parity and figured out ways to increase pay where we could, but it's not where it deserves to be because, as Janice mentioned, these are not glorified babysitters. These are women and men who are providing meaningful childhood education for our students, getting them ready for the childhood experience. We were just talking off camera prior to this of the impact that COVID had on our children without them having that
Right.
socialization,
Right.
without having that education. Well, now that we're beyond that, we're still in a phase where, it's difficult for students to get to that next level without this meaningful experience that we're providing them. And so the way it shows up is that we're finding ourselves as providers trying to not only stabilize the family through wraparound services, but we're also stabilizing the employee as well. And there's a lot of work to be done in that way. But overall, some of the things that could help mitigate those challenges is a reimbursement rate that actually meets the needs of us being able to provide this childcare. We're not trying to get rich off early
No.
childhood development. We're just trying to simply provide the service. And the barrier for providers is simply that, providing that service. How it also shows up on the end of the family is the barrier to entry to even get childcare assistance. All of the different qualifications that they have to meet in order to even get a small percentage of their experience with their child in our program covered. All families want to be able to fit the bill. And if they find themselves not being able to do that, you see attendance decrease and they're exiting the program. We realize that kindergarten and first grade are all meaningful steps as it relates to folks being lifelong learners and adding value to our community and getting a job. But before they get to that step, and I've talked to elementary students or elementary teachers and professionals, they want those students to be able to walk into kindergarten ready. And this experience that we talk about gets them ready for that. And so while we're trying to persuade the stakeholders who are reimbursing us, it's also a matter of persuading families that this is a meaningful hurdle that you need to get over on behalf of your child. But with all of the barriers to entry, we find ourselves trying to do more of that persuading. Come in. There was a point in time that, it was even more difficult, because I won't say that there hasn't been any progress, but there was a point in time where it was even more difficult. There were even more barriers to entry. And so the common thread in the community, the talk was, this isn't a product or a service that is for us. It is not available for us. And so we're now having to reconnect with families to say, no, it is available. There are more resources that are available to you, but it's a matter of getting them through that funnel in order for them to see on the other side that it's going to enlighten their lives and the lives of their children.
So, Janice and Deidre, jump into Mary as well. How are providers, families, community organizations, and even nonprofits such as yours tackling these challenges or navigating these challenges and supporting families through all of this?
Yeah.
So when I think about it and just listening to Deidre share, it's it's different how we are still very much mission driven, staying in our lane, but we're connecting more because families, whether they're families that enter into services through CFI or through Oakridge, they're all needing the same things. And we are all really up against the same wall. Changes in the rules, expectations, other resources that we depended upon, they are no longer there. So we have had to kind of work together to say, here are some things that I can do, that I can bring to the table. And there may be some other things that you can bring to the table. So we're having different conversations because at the end of the day, we all want better results for kids. We want stability for families. We want to address the housing piece. We want to address food insecurity. So when I look at the partnerships and new partnerships that I've developed over the past 4 or 5 years, it's felt good about that, and also kind of a relief in that we can share with each other things that have worked and things that we really need to move away from because maybe it doesn't help families to the extent that we need them to help families. The other thing is that we're able to save some dollars because we're looking at more efficiencies. So maybe I'm doing a softer handoff to a housing entity so that the parent doesn't have to go hither and far away to address an issue. So that's a good thing in that piece. People will say, well, Jan, why are you connecting them to the bank? I said, at some point, we're going to have to provide new tools to help them survive in this new landscape and provide financial educational literacy to not only kids but also to parents, but also to our staff. So that happens at our early childhood education center in which they came in. I'm like, we have to start with everyone, but also offering it up to the staff as well. It makes a difference how we connect because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids and the families and moving forward.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just say to one thing, we're really grateful for our partnership with United Way and that we get to offer bonuses for attendance and for credentialing.
Okay.
That gives our staff something to look forward to, that motivates them. It helps them understand that this is a professional space and we're professionalizing it every step of the way. That adds a great deal of value. Being able to communicate with our families about wraparound services that are offered. I mean, I think about the last quarter of last year when hunger was just at bay in more ways than one, and us trying to configure ways to make sure that their needs were met, whether it was through our mobile food pantry at DMARC or connecting them to other food pantries in the area. And so if anything, these challenges are causing us to deepen our relationship with both staff and family to ensure that their needs are met. Because if childcare is a challenge, the likelihood that other challenges exist in the household is high. And we are positioning ourselves to meet those needs of the families. Now, granted, Oakridge hasn't done a rate increase for childcare in more than 3 years. And so looking at our business model is also a component of that. When we talk about we need more slots, usually when we say we need more slots, that also means we need more teachers in the classroom and we need more bodies in the classroom. And so we're working in tandem. It's not a chicken or the egg or an egg or the chicken. It's both at the same time. And as much as we can professionalize the experience, it's on us as a nonprofit to sharpen the business model so that it works for the benefit of the families and we're putting those families first.
Oh, Mary, as we record all these episodes, we don't set everyone up to say this, but these issues are so interconnected. We've done several podcast interviews on food insecurity, and then next on housing, and now on childcare. But the same issues come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so interconnected. And if you're having issues with one, you're probably struggling with the other. And our childcare workers can't just take care of kids. They're also helping fill in these gaps on making sure that kids have safe food and a safe place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, how does United Way fit into this navigation and coordination role here specific to childcare?
Yeah, we try to be good partners and listen to what the childcare centers are going through. I mean, when Janice and Deidre are talking about reimbursement rate, so that reimbursement rate is what percent of market rate? 45?
I'm going to say 45 potentially, and then it's of the previous 2 year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
not current.
when you think about that and you think about running a business, you're
Right.
getting paid 45% of what it costs you to run your business. So that model is a challenge for those that are serving low income individuals. And as I understand it, with a private pay childcare, you get paid whether the child is there or not. That
Correct.
is not the case
Absolutely.
with this. So now you've got the instability of the workforce because you don't know, as the owner of the daycare, when money is coming in or when kids are not going to be there. So it's really challenging to get the professionals to step forward and then open up slots to serve more people because you're getting 45% of market rate, and B, you don't know what the stability of attendance is going to be, which is also dependent on what revenue you're going to earn. So it's a very challenging model. One thing that United Way is doing in partnership with our 16 coalition childcare centers is we've been able to get 2 grants. One grant is from Polk County, and that has allowed us to invest in capital expenditures. So if you think about a childcare center with the issues I just described, and then they've got a roof that's leaking, or they need a new HVAC, whatever the case might be.
Or new windows.
Or new
Right,
windows.
yes.
Yes. Or they need to expand, as in Families Forward, to have infant care in
Right.
their child care. So because of the funding from Polk County, United Way is able to invest
Right.
in these capital expenditures so the child care centers don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect
Good.
of what we're trying to do. The second aspect is, to the points made before, is the career pathing and the professionalization. And that is through a grant that we received from the National Fund. So we've been working on this for about 1.5 years in traditional child care centers. Now we're going into home care for refugees and trying to apply what we learned. But we did simple things like we turned a closet into a break room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
huge for the staff.
Made a big difference.
Made a big difference.
Mhm.
And, we just did a survey in the fall of these coalition childcare centers. Pay has increased, retention's increased, satisfaction, being felt worthy, and all of that will lead to being able to open more slots because there's more stability in the workforce. So we're hopeful that these 2 grants together will help us learn a little bit of something, and then we can apply it in a much broader context.
The break room's a great example. Are there other creative strategies that you've all heard examples of that are really helping support the workers and reduce burnout?
Well, one thing that we know with regard to burnout is that, in order for us to have safety in the classrooms and abide by standards, we need staff present. And that is one of the difficulties that exists when it comes down to burnout. I mean, at Oakridge, we have 4 other departments that we engage, and we'll do staff luncheons and things along those lines. And we find ourselves having to truly work around or figure out more ways to be inclusive of our staff in the lower level because of that. And so as a result, we're trying to work through a program that allows us to bring in substitutes. So if a childcare worker is down on that day or a teacher is down on that day, we don't have to skip a beat, that we have the continuum of care that exists because other credentialed individuals are going to fit the bill and be in that classroom and give our students a nurturing experience. And so that's something that's on the horizon for us, knowing that, even today, literally where I was leaving was the lower level where we had 2 folks that were off, and our director and assistant director were in the classrooms. And so I had to meet with them in their classrooms. And so if we can expand the capacity, that would be great. The other part is that I've got folks that have been in this business for 20 plus years who are so committed to early
Mhm.
childhood education. What does that mean? That means that soon they will be retiring and we will have to bring in another group of individuals to fill in those gaps. And so creating thoughtful feeder programs to get students into our classroom experience is also something that we're engaged with. We're doing it right now with Des Moines Area Community College with folks that are invested in early childhood education or education in general. And we're looking to model that program at Grandview and at Drake University as well. And so creating the next phase of 25 plus committed teachers in the classroom is another goal as we look at growth in this space.
And that's a great example of system-wide collaboration as we pivot to that topic, Mary. What does that actually look like in practice? That's one thing that we like to brag about is how great our community is at coming together and working together. What does that look like in practice, that systems-wide collaboration when it comes to childcare?
So I think it's something as simple. So our Women United group funds a lot of these childcare centers, and we had our Women United event in the fall, and we invited the childcare center directors, and just them coming together and being recognized and building relationships with someone else that maybe they could pick up a phone and call them if they've got an issue. It's something as simple as that, but it's also when we're going through this pilot program of funding these childcare coalition centers, that they do build strong relationships and they can call on each other in a more formal environment. So I think it's just what we do so well here in our ethos in Central Iowa, which is um, building community, and that's what we're doing. What we hope we're doing collectively with our childcare centers.
That recognition's so important too, and a good reminder. That's something simple we can all do. My kids haven't been in a childcare center for a long, long, long time, but I can still go back to that childcare center and drop off breakfast some morning, right?
Mhm.
That's something simple we can all do. Or reach out to a childcare worker who made a big impact on our lives and
Yeah.
became a part of our family
Right.
and just thank them and recognize them. Easy
Yeah.
things we can do just to make sure everyone understands how important their role is.
Hmm.
Okay, Janice and Deidre, from your perspectives, back to collaboration, what makes it so effective, but what also can get in the way when we're all trying to work together?
I don't know. I think about building that level of trust with each other because we have that shared vision of doing well by families, but really helping to create a strong, safe community so kids can play, can learn how to get along with each other in that piece. I think the other piece is that um, we will have to continue to band together, and we are very grateful to United Way for helping us in that advocacy effort to kind of share that story. And we kind of talked about it earlier in our discussion today, sharing that story because I think people have kind of a distorted view of families that are in need, and then looking at making sure we don't silo ourselves, that we're really looking at when we're building things and creating different approaches to address this issue, that we are looking at the data. We're looking at what's working and what's not working, and then how can we move forward together so it's going to be a win win for everyone, a win for the community, a win for the family so that they can achieve their goals and that the littles can also get that strong educational foundation and look at the other opportunities there is. So now you have a win win for everyone.
Hmm.
And so I think that collaboration piece is piece, but it starts like what we're doing today. It's that communication, it's talking about things that work and things that don't work. And I describe it as the courageous conversations when we have to kind of peel it back and say, yes, we may have made a mistake here, but how can we pivot and move in a different direction for kids and for families? So we either invest now or we're going to pay later.
Mm.
And we believe that our kids are worth it. Our community is worth it. And I believe that we have the smarts, the commitment to really make these hard decisions and move this forward as it relates to childcare. And I'm really excited because there were several bills that were moving forward. The one, I would say it's a big bill. It made it through the funnel. It's the codification of the child care pilot. I really wanted more on the reimbursement rate in that, but we're having these conversations, which never would have happened. And I'd hate to say, but it's because of COVID, because it pushed it up to the forefront, and we've never retreated. We continue to move forward on that discussion. So I'm glad we're having it today.
Mhm.
Anything you want to add?
I mean, it just takes all of us. There are so many folks in our community that need early childhood education. There's so many folks in our community that need access to childcare for their young people so that they can get to work and provide for their families. And so from my vantage point, there's no competition in this space. In fact, last
Right.
fall, 2 childcare centers in our community closed.
Yep.
And so from my vantage point, if there's a childcare center that exists in your community and you're wanting to do something, engage, whether it's through dollars or through time, do it, because they could 9 times out of 10 use the
Yes.
assistance, use the help, because this is going to take a village, as it has in the past. It will continue to take a village until it's completely resolved. This aspect impacts every aspect of our lives as a community,
That's right.
educating our students and people getting to work. And not solving it is not an option, because our students need to be educated and folks need to get to work.
Yeah. And I think that's just a great call to action. If today's community conversation inspired you, get involved, advocate for policies that support working families, volunteer, donate, join Women United, the group that has been mentioned that invests in early childcare success initiatives. There are so many ways to get involved. I think of you as 3 very powerful and hopeful women. Let's talk about what gives you hope when it comes forward. Let's end on a positive note. What gives you hope for childcare in our community and the progress that's being made, and for those littles, as you called them, who are the next generation of powerful and hopeful community members? Start with you.
So I'm very hopeful. Number one, we're having this conversation today. The fact that there are multiple conversations held with public-private partnerships. The second would be that of some communities creating their own employer slots. Um, the fact that we're thinking out of the box. So many of the centers are looking at non-traditional care hours. So many of us, it's a 6 to 6, but what about those that don't work within that time slot? So I think that's exciting. But to me, the icing on the cake is that we're looking at early childhood education as a profession,
Yeah.
and a profession to be very proud of, because it's at the forefront, and you're making that huge difference in the life of a child. So that's what I'm hopeful about.
You know, I think about what this profession looked like for me as a young kid, and all I could think of is the Babysitters Club. And my oh my, how we've grown a great deal from the Babysitters Club, because while that was its own thing, for childcare, it's a bigger deal when you think about the needs of our community right now. And so what gives me hope is the growth, the professionalization of this work. What also gives me hope is the vision of our funders to be able to allow the professionals to follow suit with problem solving. We think about non-traditional hours. We're similar to you all in that we're wrapping up about 6 o'clock, and we've advanced a little bit more than 10 other providers to do non-traditional hours in our Prepare to Care program. And so I see that booming in the near future with folks who have those non-traditional hours and they need that care. But the thing that gives me the most hope is why we're all here, because this is a need. And seeing the growth in our children over time, knowing
Yes.
that we're making a difference, just gives me the confidence to be able to walk in a room and say confidently that this is a need and this is what we need to fulfill it. I've watched children in my short stint at Oakridge make leaps and bounds through early childhood education, identifying development delays, identifying opportunities for growth in their children, things that should not wait until kindergarten, until high school, but we're meeting the needs right now. And so knowing that we're a step ahead in making sure that our kids are prepared for the biggest, brightest future that they can possibly dream of gives me the hope and the vision to say, let's do more, let's go deeper, and let's make the biggest impact we can.
Mary?
I think so. There are a couple of things that give me hope. One is the traction that Janice mentioned about people recognizing this as an issue. It's also what Deidre said earlier, where it affects everyone, even if you don't have kids in childcare. This is a workforce issue. It's an economic development issue. So therefore, it should concern all of us. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a board member who was leading a key corporation in the community and said, I cannot get people to take a raise. Why can't I get people to take a raise? And I said, well, they can't because they lose their childcare benefits and they won't make it up until they make double. So it's not worth it for them. So that's bad for the employer. It's bad for the individual. But I think that the fact, to Deidre's point, that all the sectors are coming together to look at this as a key aspect is giving me hope. I think the thing that gives me the most hope overall is seeing these amazing leaders, lend their voice and be key spokespeople for this, because I just am always impressed and I'm always proud to call them colleagues, and to have people like this leading this issue is really, I think our community should be really grateful.
Yeah. As a quick follow-up, because I love giving you the last word, do you see any signs that this field really could move forward with greater professionalism, professionalization of childcare workers, better pay, training, clear paths to career advancement, things that we've talked about today?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a multi-sector approach to doing it. I don't think it can just be the child care center is going to pay more and therefore we can open up more slots. It's just not going to work that way. To Janice's point, if there's employer slots or if there's other things that we can be doing, I think it's going to take us all to do it. But I definitely think it's worth doing and that we can do it. It's just we can't just say, okay, child care center, you go figure that out, because it's not going to happen. Nothing in this community has happened that way. It's going to take us all.
Well, thank you. We've learned so much in today's conversation. I appreciate the barriers you shared, Janice, the workforce professionalization, the reimbursement rate, the cost of care for providers, how important it is that we create an environment where kids can learn, but also where kids can play. How important is that? And how we're all working together to have better results for kids. Our kids are worth it and our community is worth it. Thank you for sharing those strong messages with us today. Today's conversation also reminds us that childcare is not a single program or provider. It's a system. And strong systems need coordination, shared responsibility, and a sustained environment and sustained involvement by everyone in that community. When childcare works, families thrive, employers succeed, and communities such as ours can grow stronger. Solving these challenges requires collaboration across all sectors, and we've heard about progress being made there, as well as a shared commitment to ensuring that every family has access to quality and affordable childcare. We've mentioned many ways you can get involved. I encourage you to go to unitedwaydm.org/childcare to learn more and commit today to find one way that you're going to help advance this important issue by maybe even just communicating more about it, maybe sharing this podcast episode with others.
Yeah.
So thanks, Mary, Janice, and Deidre for joining us today. Appreciate all of your insights. I'm Emily Abbas from Bankers Trust, and thanks for listening to Community Difference Makers. When we come together for a shared purpose, we don't just talk about change, we make it happen. So tune in next week for part 2 of our 4-part series on childcare.